Hi, it's Jen.
It's Tara.
We're here with another episode of Girlfriends Talk Marketing. Today we're at the Fun Beacon Studios and we're talking with Dawn Ringel of Ringle PR. And we are going to be talking about where PR fits in the whole marketing scheme.
And welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes. Awesome. Well, we can't wait to talk PR, so let's just dive right in.
Okay.
So we're talking about PR and marketing and where it fits in. With all of the social channels that we have today and the blogs and all of the capacity we have to directly reach people, where does PR fit in and is it still relevant?
PR is very relevant, and I'm glad you asked that question. A lot of people ask that question these days because you're right that the world has turned digital. Digital is how information is shared.
Yes.
But if you are an organization that's very, very serious about growth, or about influence, or about leadership, you absolutely value public relations. You value those media opportunities. And the reason is because organizations know that they're hard to achieve. The difference between media relations and other forms of communications is that being profiled or featured by a journalist means that you have earned that. That means that you've passed a very, very high bar because there are so many organizations that compete with you that are looking exactly for that same thing. And so an organization that's looking to really show leadership or credibility or just build a brand, especially if they're thinking about something like an initial public offering or a merger or they've had a change in leadership, they will absolutely covet the opportunity to have a successful media relations program.
Okay, so we're talking about earned media here.
Exactly. Yes. This is media that is not bought, it's earned, whether that's print, whether that's online, whether that is broadcast. It has to be pitched, and journalists really have to be convinced that your organization really does cross the high bar that they need to see in order to choose to cover you.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, so again, we talked about social media. We talked about all the different ways that platforms, or all the different platforms that people can use to essentially get their word out. Can you talk to us like exactly how that fits in and in what way do you rank the platforms or, you know, how do you get the message out the best way?
So it's not so much a ranking, but it's very, very different with media relations than it is with social media or email marketing or blogging.
Okay.
The commonality with all of those is that you're representing your organization. And your organization needs to reinforce the same brand and the same messaging no matter what you're doing. But with media relations, you are doing things differently, and that's because you're going through gatekeepers. You're going through the journalists. And as I mentioned, journalists do have this high bar where you need to be thinking, how am I different? And am I able to provide timely information just when journalists need it? And is it verifiable? And is it interesting for them? All those different factors come into play. So it's a very different way of doing things to accomplish the same goal.
I see. Well, and Jen's a journalist, so she knows all about how to gatekeep people from the story.
That's right.
Yes.
You better have a good story if
good
you want
hook.
to get into the media.
That's so great.
And I think that's one of the challenges that companies have because they all think they have a great story.
Right.
So how do you talk to companies about getting PR? How do you talk to them about what they need to do in order to be able to get into the newspaper?
So a few things. First of all, I do a lot of media training. And the reason I do media training is because companies need to understand what's on journalists' minds. They need to put themselves in their shoes. And sometimes it's surprising what's on journalists' minds, or sometimes it's just something that they're not thinking about day to day. For instance, all of us know how much competition there is now through the media. There are zillions and zillions of different sources that we can go to online for the same information. So reporters and editors and publishers, but we're talking here about reporters and editors, are under tremendous pressure because they want to be first to break news, or they want to be able to write news in a way that is different from all their competitors, so people go to them first for it.
Okay.
And so that can be very, very difficult, and clients do need training in order to break through with our help, break through the noise, and also become the kind of sources that media will want to work with again and again and again.
Okay. So all of this effort into PR, and it does take a lot of time, but and what do you get out of it? You know, that's, I think, how do you set those expectations appropriately?
So there's two sets of expectations. The first set of expectations is that when you're working with the media, you want to help people to be their best with every single interview. Because you don't have control over what ultimately is written. But you can do everything possible to really advance your messages.
Story and the messaging.
And your brand in a very interesting way. And so what clients need to know is that journalists are very, very good at what they do. And if they are prepared, most of them are. And if clients are prepared with the right, interesting, compelling information, data, quotes, and other resources, that chances are most of the coverage they get, they're going to be happy with. So that's the first set of
if you set it up, set it up for the journalist to have a fairly turnkey presentation, that obviously makes them have to do less digging and work. So the likelihood of getting more coverage, more things talked about is probably, if you set it up that way.
That's right. But what I will say also is great journalists don't just rely on what they get from our clients. They do their own digging. They want to make sure that they have thoroughly covered a story, that they've looked at all the nuances, all the sides. They will probably interview more than one source. Even for a profile of the company, they'll look for customers. They may look for analysts or other third parties. They may look for another example of someone in your space, just so that they have balance. And then the second set of expectations is a little bit more complicated because of the way the world has changed. So as we were talking about before, everything is digital. So there is a huge emphasis now on a couple of things. One is sales, and one is analytics. And I suppose there's a third too, and that's sharing. And that's actually, I shouldn't say I suppose, it's a huge thing. Okay, so it used to be that when clients were looking for coverage, they wanted print. And if they got online, they didn't
be like, whatever, no value.
And I remember this with an industry publication where I was told that the website had something like 1 million hits a month, even so, or 1 million visitors a month. Not good. Today, what is going on is people want the online. They want the print too, because the print, if it's the Wall Street Journal in particular, that's a measure that you've really crossed a hurdle. Because they can print fewer stories sometimes than they used to. So it's great when you have both. But the online is wonderful because they can immediately share, and also the editors and reporters themselves, they look for their stories to be shared. It makes them more competitive. And there are things you can do to help that. One is, of course, if you get into high circulation media with a good online presence.
Yes.
Then, and you have links to your client's website embedded in what you have sent out, and journalists use those, then there are definitely times that you're going to drive hits.
Right.
But not every article will drive hits. And so that's why it's important to think about the bigger picture.
Yes.
But it's also important to merchandise what you have. And so from a social media standpoint, for instance, being able to comment on an issue or a trend and then to link to an article about your organization.
Right. Yes. Commenting on that.
Yes.
It's super powerful.
Very powerful. And you just never know. Any time that you're sharing an article in that way, who might wind up following you that hasn't before.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's also great for search engine optimization.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's really important, I think, to understand where in the whole big picture all of this fits, because it is not direct sales. And I think that sometimes companies expect, I'm going to put this article out and it's going to sell. And that's not. But it is going to build your reputation, and it is going to augment all of the other things that you're doing.
Right. That's right. And the other thing is, in certain situations, business to business, I think in particular, it really can be influential in ways that you're not thinking about. For instance, if you're a fast growth company and on your radar is an initial public offering or a merger, you want to be active with media relations. You really, really want to be really momentum by putting out different news releases about new
services,
leaders,
products, executives.
Exactly, because what happens is, as your company is being considered for these kinds of transactions, for taking them to another stage, analysts are looking at your website, or they're going on Google, as are potential investors, and they want to see, are you in the news? What have you been announcing? Who's been covering you?
Right.
It's all a piece of all the other factors that they consider in their decision making. And that decision making isn't just about whether or not to work with you, but certainly it might factor in to all the other factors when they're trying to figure out valuation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and timing.
Yeah.
So it's a critical piece, in my opinion, if you're the kind of company that really does have that kind of growth on your mind.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what are you working on these days?
So I'm having a lot of fun. Ringel PR was founded in June. And I have been delighted to be working on projects in a variety of industries, some of which I have concentrated on in the past, some of which are a little bit newer to me. And so I'm working with associations. I'm working with companies in the food and the beverage and the hospitality space.
Nice.
I'm working with business service providers, and I'm getting more into events and into public relations for cultural organizations.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, excellent.
And where can people find you?
My website is ringelpr.com.
Okay.
And I would love for people to reach out to me personally. They can do that at dawn@ringelpr.com. and Twitter, dringel2. And my phone, for people that actually still use the phone, is 781-449-8456.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I loved it. Thank you. And we learned a lot, and we can't wait to look forward to seeing more of your articles published. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.